What's going on, everybody? Talk to me, Buffs Nation.
We don't have to do anything. We're going to outwork them. We're going to out-recruit them. We're going to out-scout them.
And Prime talked about all of that stuff at Big 12 Media Days today. I'm your boy Jay here on the Prime Time for College Football. We got my dude, Philip Dukes, pulling up to also talk about what went down. We're going to talk about who is the quarterback situation. We're going to talk about some of the statements that Coach Prime made while he was there, because he's back looking healthy, looking spry, and he's making it happen. And, of course, I'm going to bring my guy in here, Philip Dukes. DukesThe Scoop. Go check him out on YouTube. Follow him on X. What's good, my guy?
What's going on, man? Good day today for Buffs fans, huh?
Oh, yeah, man. It's a great day. You got a lot of stuff that came out of Big 12 Media Days that we're going to dive into and talk about. But, man, you've been all over the place, man. How's it been for you in these streets, dog?
Oh, man, that's good, man. You know, I'm blessed. I can't complain at all. Glad to be able to see Coach Prime make his return. Big 12 Media Days had no, you know, the story is always going to be Colorado. So I think it was just good to see Julian and K Salt and people continue to get into that frame or get into that mode that football is around the corner. So, man, definitely an exciting day. And, man, I'm just looking forward to the season.
Yeah, man. You know, you got Georgia Tech right around the corner, dog. You're right. We are, 6 weeks away, roughly, college football, dog? I'm so excited. We need it, man. As I miss it. I need some action on the field. I need some stuff that's going down. So, but no, I want to let the people know, man. Follow my guy Dukes over there, DukesThe Scoop. You can find a link in the description below on my channel. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button on everybody, bell notifications so you don't miss any of the videos, man. And so there's a lot, like I said, a lot of stuff came through in the Big 12 Media Days. First and foremost, Coach Prime was out there walking around, moving, and he looks healthy. He said he wasn't going to talk about his health, but there's been so many speculations over the last couple of weeks because he been absent. So the question is, how you feeling about Prime being back? Because me personally, got me excited that, okay, everything's good. I don't have to be concerned as a person about him. I'm actually pretty excited. How did you feel seeing him walk out there with all of that energy? Because he got a lot of it.
Yeah, I think the thing for me was I may have had a little bit of a different perspective. So I actually texted with him a little bit, maybe about a week ago. And so from that interaction, I knew what was going on. I said, okay, he on the way back. And I talked to some people that you know are kind of in his closer circle, and everybody pretty much knows, like, Coach Prime, it ain't that. He's a guy that you got to make stay home, that you got to make take the time out for himself. And I think that even though he had the time allotted, he actually said, you know what? This may be the time for me to take a little bit of time. There's a lot going on in his life, a lot going on with his kids, you know, even from having, being a new grandfather all the way up to having two sons make it to the NFL. So with that being said, I just think, I'm like, you know what? Coach Prime just needed to decompress. And I think that the health has something to do with it. And sometimes, you know, God can tell you, say, all right, now sit down for a second.
Yeah.
And, you could be the type of guy that don't and not listen when you get those, when you get that premonition or you get that omen or you get that word. And he's not that type of guy. So I think that seeing him come back the way he did today, it was, for me, it felt like the very example of back like I never left. Because if you follow Coach Prime, you still got the inspiration in the morning time. You still were able to go see him walking. You saw him. You saw the people coming to visit him. You saw people having positive things to say after they visited him. So I think now it's just like we all got a chance to visit with him today. So I just think it's a positive day for Bucs fans and even those fans who aren't, make necessarily Colorado fans, people who are fans of the culture and Deion Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. And spot on with that you get that word from God or just the human body in general, right? It's going to tell you need to rest. And one of our biggest flaws as humans is we don't listen to ourselves. When our body tells us to take some time and relax, we're like, nah, we're going to push through. You got to grind. You got to do this and another. And then the next thing you know, you laid up in a hospital bed. Sometimes you got to just hear the word. Usually that intuition is God whispering, you saying, hey, Calm down, slow down, take a break. It's okay. It's okay to get some sleep. It's okay to sit down for a minute. Just don't do it too much, especially when you're on the grind and stuff. So, yeah, that's what I felt with Prime. Seeing him fishing, seeing him move around. People that came to visit him, they gave you some good reviews on how Prime is. And speaking of his kids, Dukes, Prime said something real interesting, kind of shocked some of the national media, and it shocked myself when I heard him say it. And I think I want to lead off with that. He's after he did his full, statement, answered some questions at the beginning. He sat down on the side and was talking to some of the guys with ESPN. Not got all the names of everybody was there, but he was sitting down with them on the side note, chopping it up, having a conversation. He talked about his love for Colorado. They talked about how beautiful it is there, how beautiful it is in Boulder. And so, Bucs fans, y'all should be excited about that because, again, Prime keeps reminding y'all he loves it there. But this is the thing that jumped out to me the most, Dukes. They asked him about what the team going to look like this season. And in a lighthearted way, he basically said they're going to be better. And the reason why he said they're going to be better was twofold. One, he ain't worried about his kids anymore, right? Like he was saying, as a dad and a coach, you're watching your players as a coach, but you're also watching your kids as a dad. Now, granted, he always talks about how all his players are his kids, but it's different when it's Shiloh. It's different when it's Shador. It's different when it's Travis, when they're basically the kids that his babies, right? He said he can now focus on coaching. That was profound to me because the second thing he said about that is now the team can't rely on Shador to bail them out. They need to, or Travis to bail them out. They now need to come together as a team. He thinks they're going to be better. What you think about that? Because that, to me, that shocked me. And some of the national guys was like, whoa, I didn't think about it that way as a coach and a parent.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that I kind of been harping on all season, like this team, you may lose two great players, and not two great players. You lost four good receivers. You lost secondary, like you lost a whole secondary just about, including Colton Hood. DJ McKinney's probably, and you lost a lot. And I think with the reinforcements that have been brought to Colorado and the players who have had another year to mature, I think top to bottom, this team is probably more talented. And I've said that ad nauseum. And for Coach Prime to come out and kind of say, yeah, without saying it, he basically was like, yeah, you're right. And so I think for the people who really go back and you look at their roster top to bottom, some people hear me talk about the offensive line, and I say, well, when it comes to offensive line, they may not be the best right now, but they're the most talented. And I think from 1 to 10, 1 to 12, I don't think you have more talent, overall talent. We're talking about potential. We're talking about size, speed, agility. I don't think from a physical standpoint, there's a more physically imposing offensive line based straight off of physicality in the Big 12. But they got to figure it out. And so I think that's the caveat to what Coach Prime is saying is, we're a better team. We just got to prove it. We got to start playing together. He knew what Shador was going to do in the fourth quarter with the ball in his hands. He has 9 plays to get 60 yards. He already had a feeling for that. He doesn't know what it's like with Case Salt in that role. He doesn't know what it's like with Juju in that role. But I think that's the exciting part that you get to find out. So I feel like and then for somebody who coaches his son, I can honestly say, man, and you've probably done the same. Like like when you don't, let's say he's out and you get to go watch the team and he's not playing, how much of a relief it could be because you're not having to coach every little thing. Like you're doing double, triple coaching. Because like if my son's in the game and I'm helping out with the defense and I'm saying, hey, you need to get here. But every play I'm looking at what he needs to be doing to not mess up. Cam, they coming your way. Like if literally, true story. Last year, Aaron Nolan, quarterback at South Carolina, former 4-star / 5-star, who's at Ohio State. His dad also is a referee. His dad pulled me to the side once. When his dad, he referees one of Cam's games last year, and he says, Dukes, if I hear you call that boy name one more time, I'm gonna throw you out the game.
Because you a parent, you out there coaching him at the same time, right?
He said, don't call his name no more. And if anybody knows Coach P, that's a big dude. So I ain't say Cam name no more. But at the same time, it's like my big brother family. But at the same time, that's the dynamic for an involved father in the sports game. So even though you may not have seen Coach Prime calling Shador every play by name or telling Shiloh every time by name and trying to coach him at the same pace that he's coaching everybody else, in his mind, and even more importantly, in his heart, he's coaching his boys every play. So that has to be a relief.
Exactly. And that was the thing that he was harping on the most in that conversation was, just as you said, I don't have to focus on everything and them individually because, like you said, as a parent, no matter what, you're going to be watching your kid and you're going to critique his footwork. You're going to critique son or daughter. You're going to critique their footwork. You're going to critique their attitude. You're going to critique the way they move, and you're going to critique the way they're talking. You're going to critique the way they respond. All of that. And so now he said that weight is off his shoulders and he can focus and see what these boys are going to be. And we'll talk about Salters as well as Juju in just a minute, but back to Prime himself. I thought that was probably the most shocking thing he said, because a lot of folks was asking the question, man, he ain't gonna like not coaching his kids. And honestly, it kind of sounds like he's like, whew, it's a relief. Now let's focus on everybody else. He talked about, of course, his health. He talked about moving around and everything and how he's doing. You know, of course, you know, he always talks about his faith and everything, but he talked about the coaching staff. One thing, season tickets are sold for the third straight season. Shout out to you, Buffs fans. Y'all showing up and showing out. I can't even be mad at I know we can give some props to Prime, but it still takes y'all to actually go out there and back the man like you have, and you've done it, which to me, as you said, Dukes, I've been reading up on some of the national experts, the analysts, and all of that stuff. And one thing that Phil Steele said, and I dropped a video on this not too long ago, he said that this team, like you said, has more depth now in comparison to years past. This is probably the best offensive line they've ever had, which is a huge thing to say because it's needed. And he thinks the running back room and wide receiver room, he said, well, the wide receiver room won't see as much of a drop off as you would think. It's going to drop, but not as big. But he thinks the running back room is going to be a big component of that. You just talked about the line, how size-wise, all they got to do is go out and do it. They've got everything. How you feel about their running back room this year? Because we know, as Prime even said himself, we got to run the darn ball if we want to be successful.
Yeah, I think you added some more elements. I think you'll miss Isaiah Augusta, but I think Dallin Hayden is somebody that you really didn't get a chance to see get off the way he can. And what I saw in the spring was somebody who's motivated, who wants the opportunity, and who's ready to show that pedigree that he's had, you know, as a four-star running back coming out of high school. You add Trackhawk, somebody who can do a multitude of things. He has a lot of shake in his game. Then you got another year of Michael Welch being even more physically imposing. Still got Charlie, old dependable, like the guy who just does
old reliable.
Right. Yeah, old reliable. Yep, you know the guy who does
for dollars, right. All of that.
Yeah, and then I forgot the running back from South Carolina, I believe. They had another.
Shoot.
Is he from?
Yeah.
He went from South Carolina, was he?
No, Augusta left and went to South Carolina and somewhere else or whatnot.
Let me look. Another running back late in the portal.
They did. They did.
I want to say around 6'1", 6'2", 220, something like that.
Oh yeah, Christian Sareem. He played at I believe he played at Mississippi State. I think.
Boom.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hey, you're right. Adding that, and then now Marshall Faulk gets to work with all of them. I think that's the one thing that we're kind of overlooking here is they've got Marshall Faulk coaching them. And Prime even talked about Coach Leftwich isn't there yet, but he's working on getting there. That's another massive component that 160. Dude, so let me say, he said 160 years combined of NFL experience in this coaching staff. And you add Leftwich with Zimmer, 240 total. This is without Leftwich. Dog. Like, that to me is the selling point to any player. I got dudes that worked in the NFL guys come here and be taught.
Right.
What better place can you go than with a whole bunch of dudes and the thing is, this is newer. So this is a new thing. It's not, I know Kirby Smart's done this stuff for years, for the most part. Let me see, Ryan Day, Sharon Moore up there in Michigan. A lot of these coaches have put guys in the league, but you haven't had very many NFL guys come in and do that. And one of the things that the guys were talking about too, move on into this wide receiver room, they're talking about how, of course, the Buffs put out the most wide receivers drafted this year. They had 3 drafted. That's more than anybody else in college football. Huge. And it feels like they reloaded. We talked about this on your channel not so long ago, Draylon Miller. And a few people have given him a comparison of like a Deebo Samuels type where he can play both. You think you can see him in the backfield?
I think it's a chance. I think there is a chance that you could see someone see him in the backfield, but I just think that you got so much right now in the backfield, you really could use him in the slot. But think about this: if let's say you want to play him in the backfield, you still feel good about what you have in the slot and on the perimeter and the wide receiver room. And let's say you want to play him at receiver, you want to play him at the slot, you want to play him on the perimeter. You still feel good about what you have in the running back room. So I think by building the type of depth and the type of team that they have, you've built yourself the ability to use him where you want to use him. It reminds me of when Christian McCaffrey got to San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk takes the next step and he becomes the threat that he is on the outside. Deebo Samuel was able to not only become an effective ball carrier and a guy in the passing game, but he also was able to become an effective decoy. And I think when you have to find out where he is, when you have to go find D. Miller, then that helps open up that offense. And you got to keep that safety out of the box if the running game is rolling. And if you see him in the backfield, if you see him in the backfield, let's say you put him in there with Dallin Hayden. Well, maybe I can't have a wheel linebacker in the game. I may need a extra corner, and now I get to play power football with the nickelback instead of a wheel linebacker. So I think the amount of things that you can do with Draylon Miller because of his versatility and him having that Swiss Army knife utility, I think it just opens up the offense even more. So wherever they do choose to utilize him, you know you're dealing with a weapon.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. And I like that because it makes me think, I mean, I say Deebo, but it really makes me think of Percy Harvin. Because everybody remember Percy back in the Florida years, and I feel bad for Percy more than anything because he was before his time. He was a little too early in the game with his skill set. Him and Reggie Bush, if you're going to be absolutely honest. Because when you got to the NFL, like today, those dudes would be nasty in the NFL because of the skill set. And I think Draylon Miller has an opportunity. You'll get Omarion back. Sounds like he's healthy or whatnot. So pretty stoked on that one. Shout out to Lawrence. Thank you for the donation. On3 says, see you, hype train is dead. Yeah, okay. Did we not witness the energy from the press? If you had to put money, does Juju start some games? I feel like he should sit out and just learn why the rush. All right. Perfect segue into the next conversation, Dukes. Prime talked about this, but this is what he said. We brought both up because I don't know which one's gonna start. Hey man, I like the fact that he was quiet about it, but at the same time, Juju even made this statement. He talked about being there and coming in. He said how much not only is it an honor, you can tell that Prime trusts him to be able to be there at Media Day because they brought 5 people and be able to speak for the team. That shows not only the maturity of a Juju Lewis, but the leadership traits that you're looking for in a player. So I'll let you answer Lawrence's question. Who you think is going to potentially get this start? Because I've said it numerous times. I think I'm going to stick to my guns. I think you go with Salters just because you know you only got 1 year left of him. And let Juju learn, but at some point play both. What you thinking?
I don't know, man. It's too tough for me to call. I'll tell you what, like today would have been the telltale sign. And when I found out that Juju was coming, I was like, oh, it's a real quarterback competition. This doesn't have anything to do with the potential of just Salter, but this has everything to do with how soon Julian Lewis could play. He's a real live quarterback phenom. And if you had to start somebody, I said this all last year, Julian Lewis was the most the most ready to play quarterback in that class. And you look at all the ballers, Bryce Underwoods, the Keelan Russells. I still think that, now there are some guys who probably could play, but I think as far as digesting the playbook, being able to make layered throws, and somebody who's played with the number of professionals that he's already played with, when you consider the every year that he's been to Athletes First Elite Camp, where he's throwing to the best of the best, and they're turning around and saying, bro, this kid is 14, this kid is 15, this kid is 16, this kid is 17. And now they're looking more so, and some of the younger guys now it's not just looking at when he goes to these elite events, it's not just looking at, oh, I'm potentially, I'm helping this kid out, to show him what a pro looks like. Now they're looking at a potential teammate. So we're talking about a real live quarterback prodigy here. And so this is no disrespect to K Salt and everything that he's done in college football, because in his own right, he was also a top 50 recruit coming out who originally was at Tennessee. He does have a 3,000-yard passing, 1,000-yard rushing season under his belt. So it's not chop suey. It's nothing to sneeze at. But I just think it's just too close to call. And if I'm being selfish about it, as someone who wants to see, to have, how can you stretch this out? Of course you would want Julian in a red shirt, right? But at the same time, it's like, man, if you got a force of nature coming, man, at the end, I mean, what do you want to do? So it's too early for me to say it, but I'll say this: I think that the quarterback room is in good hands, and if K Salt starts, someone who's already played in front of 50,000 people, I think that probably bodes well for the first game of the season on a Friday night. I just don't think there's any way that you can keep Julian Lewis off the field long term, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And the good thing for Colorado is that if they decide to ride with Juju game one, you're doing it at the crib. Like, Auburn, that's the one thing for me when I even looked at them. They play in Waco against Baylor, right? Baylor looking like Dave Aranda's offense is going to be good. It was one of the better offenses in the Big 12, but Dave Aranda's a defensive guy, and it looks like his defense is starting to finally improve. You don't want to take no young quarterback over there that ain't really had no starts. You don't want a true freshman starting on the road like that. That's the thing I like about Colorado, is that they have that option to be like, nah, we're going to go ahead and we can let the young man play against Georgia Tech, but it's at the crib. It's not in Atlanta. Even though in Atlanta, that's his house. That's where he's from. He's from Georgia, so that wouldn't be too big of a deal, but I think he's going to be something special. But you're right. You would like to redshirt him, but again, if he's a force of nature, like we're seeing and hearing, it's going to be tough to keep him off the field. But Prime even talked about that, how this team, he feels like I said before, it's going to be a better team because it's going to be a team. This is now year 3. We're now in the expectations of, all right, Prime, you started bringing kids in. You've done the transfer portal a few times. You started to bring some recruits. It's now for us to see who you really are, because you didn't get to bring in a quarterback this time. You didn't bring in a Heisman Trophy winner this time. I looked at Colorado's schedule, and because of the faith I have in them being able to produce, I think there will be a slight drop off this year that reverts back next year. I got them at about 8-4, 9-3 once again. Where are you feeling right now? Is that too high, too low? What are you looking like for this team? Because I know the first couple games will tell us everything we need to know, but I think in the end, Coach Livingston is going to kill it with that defense, to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're far off. I would say 9-10. I think – so put it like this. Even Coach Prime today said the Big 12 championship winner is going to be a 10-win team. He thinks 2 losses. So if I put Colorado right in there, I see Colorado 10-2, 9-3 in a Big 12 that's not as – I think some great teams in there, but I think the Big 12 is pretty evenly matched this year. And I think Colorado is still in that upper echelon of Big 12 teams. I mean, just look at the roster. Like, man, it comes down to Jimmy's and Joe's. And when I look at, you look at the best offensive line in the Big 12 is probably Utah. When you look at the amount of draft picks for this year's draft they have, you look at the defensive line, I think Colorado is probably right up there with Texas Tech when you look at production off of what they've actually done and who they've got. So, the running back room, like the Big 12, there's nobody in the Big 12 who, when I look at a position room, that I say just dominates over what Colorado has. And I think that gives them an opportunity to win every game, and that's including the quarterback room. So I think the job of recruiting they did, and when they literally, I said it, and I was like, hey, look, y'all, the portal ain't over. The portal ain't over. The portal ain't over. And it was, oh, well. And I think what people were thinking was, well, we don't have that many spots on the roster because we've already got this many offensive linemen. Nah, man, they said they're going to get more. And there was a term that I used all season that anybody who's in here who follows me, I said they're not upgrading, they top grading, which means that they start from the top and working their way down. So if they got somebody who they feel like can be at the top of their roster, whether they have at the top of that position group, whether they have somebody penciled in there or not, if they feel like they can get better, whether it be through demotion or competition, that's what they're going to do. And they brought in guys who have the opportunity to play at a high level. So I think but that's how you build a championship team. And you don't have the security blanket of a Travis Hunter anymore. So these guys got to play.
Yeah, he said, as Prime said, you can't have Shadru go out there and bail you out no more. Now you get to see if a Juju can, if a K-Saw can actually bail you out. If Draylon goes out and bail you out, anybody in the backfield bail you out. You've got all of those pieces now that they got to bail you out, and you get to see if they're what they made of. Because when I look through the Big 12, and I've been putting together some preview stuff on them, man, Colorado is considered having the toughest schedule in the Big 12 right now. I mean, they're playing all the top teams for the most part. Arizona State's probably still, they're the reigning champ, so we can't just kick them off the top. They won it, and they got the quarterback back. So we gotta always respect that. BYU's dealing with some ish. They ain't got no quarterback. I don't know what the hell they gonna do. If you're keeping it a buck. Not sure what that's going to happen there, but Prime was asked about playing against TCU again. As we all know, first game of Prime's career as a head coach at the Division I level at Colorado was on the road against TCU. He slapped Sonny Dykes and that squad around. Travis gave you that ridiculous interception, and now they asked him about it. How does it feel to go up against them again? And he was pretty, he was truthful on it, and it's everything. It was everything. Dukes, how you feel about them in this game against TCU this year? How you feel like Colorado's going to be prepared for this one? I feel like they're going to be a lot more up for this one than probably besides Georgia Tech, just because this kind of brings back everything full circle of how Coach Prime got this job.
I would say the good thing is a lot of the people who are on that team are no longer here. Like, there's not a lot of people on that team that'll be on this year's team. I think this year's team doesn't remember. There's less memory of 1-11 Colorado now there's less memory now than there was then. So you got to think that ended up being a 4-win team, but they were coming off. They still had the remnants of a 1-win team. You still had guys, a lot of that culture was still there. You got 2 years of a winning culture now, and it's starting to set in where the habits in top grading and being better, not for the sake of being good, but for the sake of being great, that's starting to seep into your locker room. So I think that this is probably going to be one of the more business-oriented teams that we've seen. So I don't know K-Salt as well as I know Juju and his family, but I do know Assassin, business-like, nothing personal. Everybody got to get it. It don't matter. Like, hey, no. So if Coach Prime goes in and makes it emotional, I think it will be. But I think for the rest of this team and these guys who probably don't have as much attachment to that team, I think it'll probably be business as usual.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Great thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be lingering in their minds, right? If anything, and hell, if you look at it, the coaching staff has kind of really seen a shift also in comparison. Your new defensive coordinator in comparison to what you had before. Some position coaches, some shifts and stuff there. So, no, you're right. They're coming in with the clean slate of, we need to beat this conference opponent. Like, that's the only thing we care about. We need to get this dub. What do we need to do to get this W? That's, to me, is probably going to be the big change.
Too, right?
Yeah. Because Shermer took over 2 years ago, and then Livingston's came in last season. So you basically new coordinator. So you're right. This is basically a whole new kind of operation. Some of the position coaches are still there, but you brought in some new ones. You've made some changes. New D line, new O line. You got Sapp out there, Coach Sapp. He's out there looking like a lunatic, which is perfect for what he wants his D line to do. So, and Marshall Faulk. So, those changes to me is going to help push every single one of those forward overall. So, I'm pretty excited about that game just because it just brings back, like I said, brings it back full circle of Prime and his first year with the squad, man. Thank y'all all for pulling up. Hit that like button. Likes are free. If you're new to the channels, go ahead and subscribe to both. Hit up DukesThe Scoop. Follow me here over at Primetime CFB. All right. So Dukes. Juju makes his statement. Salters makes his statement. We got to now talk about some of the defensive players. Colorado made some moves, man, in the portal. The portal was pretty fruitful for them. Let's put it that way. You bring in a Jaheim Hodis, which to me that might be the biggest game changing pickup you brought out of the portal, because now you got a dude that's for real going to clog the middle. You bring in Tyrekus Davis, and I don't care what nobody say. If you've ever watched Wyoming play football, if there's one thing I know that they've put out, corners, right? Or you got a big Buffalo at quarterback. So one of the two is going to pop up, man. When you look at the defensive players that pulled up and the portal guys, 2 wide receivers, Sincere Brown, as well as Hakeem Williams. We'll start on defense first. Who on the defensive side do you feel like is going to probably have the biggest impact starting off this coming year?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say Otis. I think Otis is going to have a huge impact in the middle of that defense, based on one of the biggest worries that you had last year was run defense and being able to plug the A-gap. Well, there's not a lot of people stronger or bigger or more aggressive in that position than Jaheim Otis. So I think somebody who has a chip on their shoulder, of course, it didn't go the way he wanted it to go at Alabama last year, but this is a guy who was good enough to play for Nick Saban. So I have to kind of go with the greatest college coach of all time, and agree with his evaluation. So you bring in a guy like Otis. I also think that give me Martavius French. I think he plays with his hair on fire. He's someone, and I know that we forget about the December transfer portal guys and the guys from the winter portal, but they're going to be just as important as some of these newer guys. And then from the spring portal, I think someone who has all the talent in the world I'm very familiar with is Terrence Love, who came from Auburn. Been knowing him a long, long time. When you just talk about a big-bodied safety who can fly, I'll just tell you, size-wise, as far as what his profile is like, think about when the Denver Broncos needed like someone to step in for a shoot that was the same size as Cortland Sutton. They asked for Terrence Love. So when you think about someone in that frame, that range, that frame of reference as far as size profile, Terrence Love is somebody who had a great spring at Auburn, didn't like where he wanted a fresh opportunity because he felt like, you know what, I probably should be starting. And a lot of people felt that way. So now he's got a chance to go out and prove it. So really excited about what Terrence Love will be able to do in his defense. And he's also a 4.0 student.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that one. With his size, 6'2", 220, but roughly just under 220 pounds. It's a big boy. Him and Taufik Bayard, that's 2 safety transfers you brought in that could do some major damage at strong safety for this year. Like, I mean, of course, you still got Carter Stoudemire, who probably is going to be your lead in at free safety, but I could totally see Love and Bayard both coming in together. Golly, that would be damaging, especially with the big wide receivers you're going to see in the Big 12, like a Jordan Tyson or whatnot, one that we know is getting looked at heavily. Yeah, that's a dang good point. A big set of safeties will make some of these wide receivers have questions about going across the middle. Typically, your linebackers will do that, but when you got safeties that size, you bring them up a little bit. Whew.
And just think about how that helps you in the run game as far as last year. Like when you look at some of the things, like the Kansas game, what you saw Devin Neal be able to do when he got to the second level. Well, when you got linebacker-sized guys on the third level, then that kind of helps you on the second level. So I just think you'll see specific packages. It takes 4 safeties to play. So I think if you need 4 that you can trust in the game. So whether you wanted to disguise a coverage and bring a guy down to the line of scrimmage and have him be able to bail and play deep third from playing in the first 5 feet of the first 5 feet, like you've got guys who can do that. So I'm excited to see what they had the talent, and that just goes to what we've been saying the whole time. They brought in a ton of talent.
Yeah. They brought the recruiting class of 33 kids that they brought in. There's a lot of good talent there, and you make a good point about that Kansas game because I know that Shiloh lost some time after having an injury or whatnot, and then that Kansas game, man, all it was just Kansas just boom pounding, just pounding and pounding and pounding nonstop. And even in that game, Shiloh finished with 7 tackles, and he was a dude that was coming downhill to hit. But when you got bigger ones, bigger safeties, yeah, that's going to be a big problem. But at the same time, Jaheim Otis is going to be the biggest issue. Who going to stop him? I don't know really many lines in the Big 12 that's going to even be able to slow that dude down because he's a big boy. And he's solid. He's up there in size of what you would get from a player to play at Alabama. I think this defensive line, though, is going to be terrifying this coming season. And like you said, Martavius French is another one to me as a transfer that's very intriguing. Him and Hughes, Reginald Hughes, that gives you some veterans that not only teach the dudes behind them, but they should be the ones that's leading the way in that room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the time that I'm looking for is third quarter Georgia Tech. That's when I think you'll have a third quarter. After that first half, you'll see players playing together. You probably giving up a big play by then, a big player or two, and you maybe a coverage bust or somebody has a bad run fit, and then you get to see what you're made of. And that's what I'm looking forward to because even though we're naming a lot of big names, these guys haven't played together yet. So I want to see what happens with Jaheim Otis with Amari McNeil next to him. Like that's an NFL interior. Or if you want to play one of those guys at the 5 technique, if you're getting gassed up the middle, you didn't have that ability last year. So I think now that you have guys who have the athleticism to be able to rush the passer from a 5 technique or 3 and play a 1 or a 0, like or a 4-eye, don't matter. You can play these guys anywhere on the offensive line because they're not just big, they're big and athletic. And I think that's something that has to be said. You have to account for. And I think that's going to be it's quite the feather in the cap of the Buffaloes on defense this year.
Yeah, and switching over to offense, you bring in Sincere Brown and Hakeem Williams. Hakeem Williams, former 5-star wide receiver, played at Florida State. Things didn't work out for him. But at the same time, he's still a big physical wide receiver. And you add in with Sincere Brown, who some people shunned your boy when I talked about him because he came from a small school. But I don't think y'all understand, man. Size, you can't teach size. And if you have the ability to get out there at 6'5" and move like he does at 200 pounds, he played at South Florida initially, right? He's at both. Yeah. He needed to get his together, basically. He got it together at Campbell, and it's a big wide receiver coming from Florida, man. The wide receiver room is going to intrigue me the most on this roster this year. I'm going to ask you what position intrigues you the most as far as going forward. But wide receiver intrigues me the most because last year you had all those dudes that got drafted. And so you had more attention. Guys like, okay, wait, you took a LeJontay Wester, who was a top dude at what Vandy. No, Shepard was Vandy. He was LA Tech. You're like, you bring him in and then you end up getting him drafted because everybody's watching everything he does. Can you do that for me while still having a Draylon Miller and an Amarion Miller ready to play? That to me is going to be the most interesting because Joseph Williams is highly rated. A lot of people liked him from Tulsa. And I watched him play in Tulsa a little bit. Kid's good. He's young. And that's the best part. He's a true sophomore. He's going to be here for him and the Miller boys together for the next 2 years. Stupid. But Hakeem being a junior, he has a chance of making himself truly shine. So, of course, I'm hoping him and the quarterbacks are working together. And then, like I said, Sincere being a senior, and he's gone after this year. Dog, this wide receiver room is going to be more fun than people understand, especially at the size, at 6'5" for both those dudes. What position jumps out to you this year, outside of quarterback, that's got a battle that you're like, I kind of want to see all these dudes play, but at the same time, Colorado ain't got no problem no matter who they play.
Man, I'm gonna ride with you on that one. I'm gonna go wide receiver room for a different reason. When I look at Joseph Williams, when I look at Hakeem Williams, when I look at Sincere Brown, when I look at the size they have, when you look at Amarion Miller, who has great size as well, I think about perimeter blocking. I think about springing the run. I think about when you run stretch. I think about when you run counter and you've got these guys. So, and not only do you have big guys, you got big guys that can run. Let me tell you, this is what I'll go with. So Sincere Brown, the first time I saw him, I thought 4.5. And I got corrected so quickly. I had people hitting me up like, dudes, go watch him. Go watch him. I knew him from around the way. I knew him. He's from the crib. 4.3. So I'm gonna go with low 4.4 until I see the 4.3. But I'm telling you, like from the people that I've talked to, and I think Hakeem came from South Florida, right? Jimmy Horn was there. I think Jimmy Horn was there when he was there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Sincere. Yeah, he was at South Florida with Horn. Exactly. Yeah.
So yep. And then LeJontay was at Florida Atlantic, I think. So when you look at guys,
Florida Atlantic, that's where I was wrong. Yeah.
If you think of guys who may have been at these mid-major schools, if you haven't realized it, the mid-major schools are now basically the 4-star factory for the transfer portal. You don't go like so now. These guys are basically counting. They're counting towards the roster as what 4 stars used to be. Because now you give me a guy who's playing 6A football in Georgia versus a guy who's already played against maybe a couple of Power 5 teams in the season. Give me the guy who's producing against Power 5 talent, or even if it's Group of 5 talent, you've got the majority of a Group of 5 beats a high school team every day of the week. So where we are now is when you look at the amount of talent that they've brought in, even with Sincere Brown, the physicality, how the maturity, and being able to say I've done it before, and you want them to go stalk block on the outside. That's what I'm looking forward to is the ability to have guys that can do more on the outside. Like last year, the biggest guy that you would have in the game probably would be Will Shepherd, because you got to play with LeJontay, you got to play Jimmy Horn, you got to play Trav. Well, now you can run out a lineup of Hakeem, Joseph Williams, Sincere Brown, and Omarion Miller. That's your 4 wide, and say, you know what? We're gonna run a little outside zone out of shotgun or RPO. What's a corner going to do when you got to respect all of their speed? And I have to say, you know what? I got to get off of his block on the outside. So now I'm looking at the wide receiver room because of the physicality that they brought in and the ability for them to be able to block on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at too. That's huge. I didn't even think about it that way. And you make a good point because all those dudes are big. Like I'm looking at the wide receivers on this roster. All of these dudes are huge. So you put two big 6'5" dudes out there, a couple of 6'2", 200 pounders, by the way, 6'1" and 6'2", 200 pounders. All these dudes are legit 200 pounds. They're not under that. They're legit. Joseph is probably the only one I would think is probably underneath it, but the rest of them are definitely 200 pounds because they look it. They look thick. They're like big dudes. Blocking for the run game and being able to spring the running backs, that's going to be a game changer for what Colorado needs to do anyway. I mean, Prime talked about that at Media Days. They need to establish a run this year because you don't have dudes to save you. Now, granted, you talked about this earlier before. K-Salt's already ran for 1,000 yards in a season. Technically, your quarterback can spring himself and get out there and do some crazy stuff. I don't know about Juju yet. I need to give him about a year of understanding how fast these dudes can move and hit you for him to realize, oh, this is when I need to slide. This is when I need to go out, which he may already know. He may already figured it out in practice. They may have put a little test to him, run up on him, and he's just like, oh, shoot. Okay, be smart. Be smart. Don't get leveled next time. But that is a big one. Being able to block is going to be huge. And this offensive line, jump into that. The line, to me, when I look at it, a lot of transfers. So I have questions, but you still got your anchor right there. Jordan Seaton. You got him right there, anchoring at the left. Freshman All-American, dude that everybody expects to be in the first or second team conference, all conference, moving forward for this year and next, for the next 2 seasons, because he's only a true sophomore. But Xavier Hill's been getting a lot of attention as of late, too. I think the only thing that I'm afraid of, I'm going to keep it a buck with y'all. Center. Right? Zari McGill, cool, I'm ready to see what you look like. But losing Cash, the true freshman was the truth. Now, but the line is deeper than it was before. How you feeling about the protection that these guys will go to go along with the wide receiver conversations? I think that was a good point.
I think the protection is going to be good. I just think they got to figure out who does what and how they do it. Like even last year, as good as Cash Cleveland was, he got to Colorado about the same time I did, to be honest, which was around the Texas
Yeah,
Tech
it's
game.
true.
We came in together, like so. That was late in the season. I think they're really impressed with McGill, and I think man, I can't call my man's name from Tennessee. I need the tackle.
Oh yeah, Larry Johnson. Is it Larry Johnson? Is that his name? I think that's his name. Let me look real
Maybe.
quick. I know exactly what you're talking about. Big boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I have it here. I'm looking right now. Yep, Larry Johnson the third. Yes. Big
Yes.
boy,
Larry,
6'7", 348. Jesus Christ.
yeah, Larry Johnson. So what I heard about Larry, I got a really good source at Tennessee. He started a bunch of this spring. He just had another one of those freaks of nature behind him, and the number one overall player, offensive lineman in the country last year, and David Sanders. So
Yes.
he saw the writing on the wall. He's like, you know what? I go somewhere where I can play right now. And there were a lot of people that wanted him in the SEC, but he couldn't go SEC because of the transfer rule
Springs.
where spring portal. So that's the guy I'm looking at to say I'm excited to see what he can do and what having another guy who can play that right tackle position does for your line. Because if you had another guy penciled in for the right tackle, now you've got another guard or a swing tackle. When you want to go power, let's say we want to bring in a six. Let's say we want to bring in a six offensive lineman. I think you could really bully teams and lean on teams with the type of talent that you've brought in, the experience, the games played. The guy from Northwestern, nobody was expecting this guy. Like, this a guy who's already played, who started. I mean, the amount of experience that you brought on this line, you just got to get these guys to jail. That's another reason I'm saying third quarter Georgia Tech, after they send a couple of blitzes at you, after somebody may have rolled their ankle, or after somebody is had to get out onto the second level, you start to know what you have when the bullets start flying. I think that's when that team starts to come together and can become that dominant offensive line. It may take a little while for them to gel, but when I'm really sold on the talent that they've compiled, the size that they've compiled, and for the ability for them to have some pressure taken off of them in comparison to last year, because you're going to be running the ball more. So now I don't have to go I'm not going backwards. I'm going forward. I'm looking to attack. And I think that's a whole new mentality for this offensive line.
No, I agree with you on that one, because I mean it makes me think about like they brought in additional folks from the SEC. You got Mana Tamani. He brought him in from Ole Miss. You bring in a key from over there at Texas A&M. So you're bringing some bigger offensive linemen. It makes me think about the size of the line that you see at like Utah, like you mentioned before. They're considered the best because of the projections in NFL draft, which I totally understand. That is exactly what you're looking at when it comes to how good a line is. How many people were projected to make to the league, and they are. So you've got that, and then adding Larry Johnson in there, who, you're right, I remember I watched him play at Tennessee. He did get some run in the Oklahoma game because they dealt with some off and on injuries on the line in that game. But the problem he ran into is that they got that 5-star that they're paying a lot of money. A lot of money. Let me explain. Let me say it one more again. A lot of money is being paid to David Sanders. So you're probably going to have to find a way to get that kid on the field for the price tag that you're playing, especially at Tennessee. They spending so much money. We're going to do that. We'll talk about money stuff in a minute. And he can play. I'm not discounting his ability to play, but I'm just pointing out the fact that they paid him a lot of money because he's that good, and because he's so good.
Right.
You got to put that on the field. So yeah, something you don't pass on. But no, you're right. The line is gelling up. Let's talk money real quick.
All right.
Let's talk a little money real quick, right? So Prime talked about this a little bit. He talked about Tech, and he talked about his boy Jerry Maguire. You know, him and Joey Maguire are tight. They're pretty. They're real close, and he talked about his love for him. But he talked about all the money that the man's spending. Tech feels like they're changing the landscape, or they're just making the biggest splash in recruiting today. Mainly because Rev Share is coming. Rev Share is here. Correction, it's here. But they're the ones showing that they're going to spend on these recruits a lot earlier. I don't see that out of Prime. I see Prime spending, if they're going to spend like that, It's on a transfer. Somebody he's seen play before. Someone he feels like, yeah, they're good enough. But he also talked about other schools coming through with the tampering game, offering up $5 million for a guy that ain't gonna probably play this year, but will play next year, so that he can play this year on their team.
Mm-hmm.
How you feel Colorado's gonna be able to compete in this NIL/rev share game going forward? Do you see it heavily in recruiting? Do you see it heavier in the portal? Because I am still in the opinion that it's probably going to be portal wise, because Prime's even said it. He likes dudes that's kind of washed off the green. They've washed off the baby fat. They understand what it takes to be successful in this game. What you think about that?
I think it's still going to be a little bit of both, and the reason being is they want guys in the college game, in the high school game, that can come in and play immediately. They want guys who can come in. So there's a Colorado filter they're running these guys through. And it's like, hey, he can play, but can he play here? And that's why you're not seeing them go after every guy, because there are guys, and you see people on Twitter and you see people on different message boards, and they say, well, this kid reached out to me and he told me that he wants to play here, man. Y'all need to recruit him. But you got to recruit a guy that we feel like, and I said, I'm speaking as if I'm on the coaching staff, we can get something out of next year. And does he fit what we want to do? You don't know if they've seen some, when you go and you say, okay, well, I'm looking at his practice habits. Is this the kind of guy that I feel like as a freshman will get it enough? Or can I go get somebody who may have already been through that, who has the same talent level, maybe 2 years later? So now I'm not dealing with the same thing that another coach will have to deal with on the front end. So I think that's a really good aspect of what Colorado is going to do as far as when it comes to revenue share versus NIL. Now, if you're talking NIL and just plain relationships, there is not a college coach in the world of college sports, doesn't matter what sport, who has more visibility than Coach Prime. And so now we're in a world where NIL is not just NIL just ain't pay for play. You really got to have a name, image, and likeness that'll sell. So if somebody says, you know what, you got to look at NIL like this, and I explained this to a high school, to a kid in one of my mentorship classes last week, which was, what can I put your face on a bag of potato chips and somebody see your face and they want to buy the chips now? That's what the true essence of NIL is. So I think that where we are now is that revenue sharing will probably help Colorado, because some of the teams in the past who may have had, a very aggressive NIL or collective, now these guys, they're like, hey, look, you got to go find legit deals. So if you can't prove that this kid's name, image, and likeness is going to help you make money, then this deal is null and void. Now, there are going to be teams that are going to be very, very aggressive in finding ways to kind of get around that. But I think in year one, you have an opportunity for everything to be even, for everything to be a little more fair when it comes to the majority of college football. Now, teams like Oregon, Phil Knight is your biggest NIL guy. So, yeah, I have no doubt that Phil Knight can say, you know what, I got 10 marketing endowments, contracts for 10 high school players if they 5 stars or higher. Well, if he has that, you can't really say that he can't give you a shoe deal if he wants to, but they're already insulated for that. I think that person is going to step up the same way this guy at Texas Tech has stepped up and said, you know what, I'm the billionaire. Hey, you know what, I got it. And you saw what happened since he said he's got it. Dave Portnoy at Michigan. You know what, we need Bryce Underwood. I've got it. So I think there's going to be somebody in that space for Colorado that eventually steps up and says, you know what, I'm going to be the person that if you come to Colorado and for a true NIL deal, when we find a true name, image, and likeness deal, when we have that player that, really exemplifies that, they'll make it happen. But in the meantime, I think Colorado will be fine.
Yeah, I agree. And the good thing is, I know there was a report, I think it was Jenny Salters, one of the NFL folks, when Prime's name was coming up in all of the NFL head coaching jobs and stuff, in which kept telling y'all, Prime had said numerous times he don't want to coach. He don't want to coach adults. He want to coach. His calling right now is with the kids. That doesn't mean in the future that it won't be that way. But right now he says Colorado's home for him. So with that being said, they're talking about how Prime was potentially a little bit more how can you say, perturbed. We'll be like Prime, We won't cuss like he normally does. Like he don't. He always say some crazy bull jive, bull junk, and all of that. But he basically, they said that he was perturbed because they needed to get the NIL and stuff together, which I thought was an interesting statement because when Prime signed his contract and he went on Well Off Media and they were talking about it, he basically said, I wanted to make sure my coaching staff was taken care of first. They lined up and paid them like I wanted them to. And then I went ahead and signed mine because all of that negative recruiting was coming down the line. I know you probably heard about it as someone who's in the recruiting world. How crazy was the negative recruiting going up against Coach Prime around the circles?
I mean, I'll tell you what, you have some negative recruiting that I heard, but I think this is the thing, like, there was a little less than I would say because of where Colorado and how they're doing their recruiting. When you get guys on campus, they're not, you're not seeing them just give a ton of information out as you've seen in the past where, people are fiending for that information. On 3, the rivals, the 24/7s, you see it get pieced out every now and then, but it's not doing the same as it's been in the past. And I think that's by design. I think that as when you start to get into more of the Colorado was my leader with some of these more highly ranked recruits, then you'll start to see more of that negative recruiting. I think the majority of negative recruiting that I've seen in individual recruitments has been closer to the October, November, or in the transfer portal when you've only got when people are saying, I'm taking this Colorado visit. Then you'll see it right then. But usually in this time of the year, this is where people, feel like, they not, we'll get this guy. But I think as Colorado starts to come on more strongly when it comes to recruiting, you'll see that negative recruiting tick up as kind of a little bit closer than it has been in the past.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we know that they're going to spin. So I don't have any concerns. Like you said, the essence of name, image, and likeness is about to be, I just saw a tweet fly out that Congress is about to do something to codify it and create, it's called the SCORE Act, to where they're about to really rein in some stuff with name, image, and likeness. I'm really curious to how they're going to stop free market capitalism from going down. But hey, there's always a possibility that somebody going to find a way to stop the payments of wrong, but then you're going to have somebody else find a way to get that money to these kids. Because I don't care what none of y'all say. Y'all think that this NIL game right now, because it's up there in front of your face, that this is unfair. Baby, we had dudes since like before I was born giving kids money illegally. They were willing to break the law to pay for kids to get them to their schools. Think about it that way. You have millionaires, potentially billionaires, willing to funnel money in a way that's illegal to get good kids to their school. And what is the benefits to that, Duke? All they got was freaking bragging rights. Like, how do you have that type of stupid money that all you want is bragging rights? Like this, for example, this cat at Texas Tech, he was making rounds at the media days talking about, saving college sports while also helping drop what? $5 million to get this true freshman offensive lineman. But that's the thing I gotta ask you though, Dukes. Does it make sense to pay a true freshman that kind of money if you don't think that he is like the realest of real, like a dude that could probably go league as a true freshman? Because I don't. I am leery of paying dudes as true freshmen unless they just like if it's a Ryan Williams where you saw in high school it was completely unfair. Sure. But I don't know about there's very many players that I would do that for.
I mean, well, Texas Tech, you got to.
And fair.
His money, and, Texas Tech to get an offensive lineman, that's not where usually offensive linemen go. So to go get a 5-star guy, and the school probably wasn't super excited about, his the money being reported. That was his agent that did that. So, 5 years, that type of bread. I mean, $5 million over. Is it a 4-year deal, 3-year deal?
It's a 3-year deal. It says it's up to 5, but the actual deal's like $770,000 a year, which is like maybe just under 2 million. So it's really weird how they worded it. So you could tell that it was kind of BS in a way. It's funny money, in which that's something Prime and them talked about it at Media Days. It's kind of funny money. They're saying you're going to get this when in all actuality you're probably not. But I did some of the math on it though, Dukes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it makes sense for Tech to do that because they don't get players like that. They don't typically get offensive linemen. They usually get a wide receiver. They usually, they're known for wide receivers, sometimes running backs, quarterbacks that throw for 9,000 yards. That's what they do. They don't do anything else outside of that for the most part. Did the math on it. If the cap is roughly about, 18 mil, that's what they're allocating of their rev of the 20 something, or 16 actually, of the 20. That's about 5% of their salary cap, which is about what you pay in the NFL for good offensive lineman. Lane Johnson, Philadelphia Eagles. He's making about 5% of the Eagles cap because you need to have really good offensive linemen. But at the same time, he's also multiple-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler. So I understand paying him 5%. I'm still leery on paying these young boys that, man. Like, I don't have a problem with them kids making money. Don't get it twisted. I love that the kids make bread. But if I'm a coach, I feel like you need to be a lot more responsible so that you can win. Because if this doesn't work out immediately with him, you might set yourself back or you may not have a job.
That's why you see all these GMs and evaluators that's why they're getting NFL guys as GMs now. That's why like you can also cover Oklahoma. Shout out to Locked On Sooners. But that's why Jim Nagy's in Oklahoma. Probably the premier evaluator in football circles in the past few years. They didn't get him for $50,000 a year. They paid him some money. So when it comes down to having guys, you look at Pittsburgh with their GM, their GM was their football GM was a former GM for the Buffalo Bills. So now it's going to be all about evaluation because now the money's attached to the valuation. So you got to take care of that bread. So, I mean, the $5 million, it was a headline. And that's the agent putting it out there, the max money it is. So you can get something like that, right? But at the same time, it's never like it ain't that. But let's say he goes and he performs. They want to have something that says, hey, you're locked into this deal. Are you going to be happy with this regardless? Well, let's say he goes out and he's all world. There are going to be some caveats in that contract that where, hey, if you go to the transfer portal, you owe us this amount of money. But an offensive tackle, the best offensive tackle in college football is worth $2 million now. That's just what it is.
That's true. Yeah, worth a lot. Yeah. That's about the number. Quarterbacks are, about 4 to 5 mil, but it's over 2 to 3 years. So yeah, no, that's a dang good point. Taylor May, shout out to you. Thank you for the $19.99. And here's the statement. Speaking of pictures being on chip bag, do you think profanity play a part with NIL? I wonder sometimes when I see players on videos using profanity, will they make companies pass them up? Yeah, I actually think that public perception is critical when it comes to endorsement deals. I mean, that's why you don't see Patrick Mahomes walking around cussing like a sailor everywhere he goes. You may catch him on a video somewhere doing that, but you're not going to catch him on a daily. And I think that that's kind of the young people problem and that's also probably why a lot of their deals will eventually become a lot smaller because public perception is reality. People care about imaging. Prime doesn't cuss, right? They care about the imaging. So I think that is a good point. What do you think, Dukes?
I think it definitely decreases your opportunities and your earning potential. I think that less companies, like if you're a guy that your brand is cussing and you got a lot of cuss music on your page, then you're probably not going to be the person that gets the NIL deal that wants to market to Christian singles. I don't know, but that's a company that could be like a Christ-based or a religious-based company is probably not going to want to, advertise with you. But it's just like us. The less you curse, the more advertising you get. I mean, it's simple. If you do a lot of profanity on your YouTube page, then it tells you, hey, there's a list. When you do a YouTube, and it says, hey, look, are you going to talk about this subject? Are you going to talk about this? How much profanity are you using on average? Is this safe for people under 18? And all of those, and all YouTube is saying, that means that we can't put this ad on your page. We can't put this ad on your page. We can't put this ad on your page. And I think that's the difference. So to you, that's the thing. That's a great question, Taylor made. And also thank you for the super chat. But yeah, boom. Man, Frog, Chick-fil-A, they ain't going. I mean, shoot. Man, them folks,
that
man,
is a Christian company. They don't even work on Sundays.
Man, God's chicken ain't going for sure. That's what we
Right.
call it. They say that's the Lord chicken. Like, nah, man. Like, shout out to the Cathy family, man. But yeah, the Lord chicken ain't going for no cursing for sure.
That is exactly it. But see, that's the thing about it. Like you say this, Tally Heat. I get you mentioning Kai Cenat, but that's one person you can't mention in comparison to these kids. These kids ain't as big as him. Nobody knows this dude. Nobody knows these players yet. Like they're still building their brand. Kai, when he first started making his videos, he wasn't out there just cussing up a storm. Actually, he was doing a whole bunch of prank videos, and that's what got his attention. Now, I mean, it was silly stuff that, young people liked and that built his following. But once you get to a certain point of famous, you darn near can do anything you want, especially if you've got yourself a nice hive. Nobody care. And you're going to get sponsorship deals because of just now you're just too big to ignore. And that's the one thing I've noticed about just getting into this media thing and doing it in general is that they're not trying to create new talented people. They're chasing people that's already built their own clout. And in a lot of those situations, it ain't that good. They may not be that good at putting stuff together. It's just, but they've already got an audience, so we're going to lean into your audience instead of building up and creating talents like we used to back in the day, man. You used to get people coming from the streets. Dukes, you worked in writing for years, right? You worked your way up, and then at that point, boom, people are like, all right, get Dukes on here because he's just good at what he does in comparison to just being known by everybody. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between that. But at the same time, yeah, these young boys, as they're building a new brand, yeah, the cleaner you are, the lot easier it is to move you around. Now, once you become big, what the hell you want to do at that point? But you got to start somewhere.
That's what I agree with. I feel like there's going to be plenty of guys who do a ton of cussing that's going to make a ton of money because it's a lot of companies like Barstool pays a lot of money out in advertising. DraftKings don't care what you do because guess what? It's gambling. So DraftKings is one of those companies that you want somebody like they don't care. They like shoot. So I'm not saying you'll stop your whole bag, but just to answer the question, it does have an effect on how many companies can come to get to you. But it's 2025. You watch TV, bro. Like, matter of fact, man, I was just watching ESPN. I didn't even realize Pat McAfee them be cussing like a sailor on regular TV.
Bro. Yep. I'm walking in the airport and I'm like, wait, did he just say what I think he said?
Yeah, for sure. Like, so they can. So just to be completely in depth about it, it can affect some guys of where they can take you, but that don't mean you can't move around because you curse. And that's just the state of the day. Like now, me having an 11-year-old who plays ball, shoot, there's gonna be certain things that I'm not gonna let him watch certain stuff. So that's a marketing dollar that goes out of that pocket because I'm not letting an 11-year-old watch it. Now, if that guy was a little more clean cut, then I can say, you know what, he can watch this. That's another dollar that guy can make. And if that guy's still cool enough to be able to appeal to the 18 to 35-year-old crowd, and I could also be able to say, you know what, he can get the 11-year-olds and the 10-year-olds too, then that's the type of guy who can make all the money and not the guy who can just get a lot of money. And I think that's the difference.
I agree with you there. Again, thank you for the super chat, Taylor May. We appreciate it. Love to see my CU nephews get Gatorade, Nike, etc. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, I agree with you there. The big brands, they're looking for the cleanest cut person they can get their hands on initially. And then as you continue to build your following and growing, then they let you slide with a lot of that stuff. So, no, that's a very good point there, man. Let's pivot to NFL real quick before we let everybody get on today evening. It's getting late. I know on the East Coast. I'll actually be out there this weekend. So, Dukes, I'm going to hit you up when I get there for SEC Media Days.
Sure.
You think Shedeur got a chance of getting that starting job at quarterback?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think he does too, man.
Man, for anybody who ain't seen it already, man, I got a good interview I just did with Young Money Bull.
Yep.
Right-hand man of Shedeur, Travis Hunter, Ace Bailey, you name it. Real great friend of the program. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, they're just talking off the record, and the whole time I've been talking like I went to the combine. I got to kick it to see what was going on. Went to pro day. I had been pretty much hearing like what was going on for a majority of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and to be hearing from multiple sources like, hey, bro, Shador really like that. It's something that everybody in the Colorado Nation already knew. Buff Nation knew it, but I think to prove it on that level, he's gonna have a chance at training camp. Maybe it's not day one, but I think if the over under, I don't even know what a good over under is. I just know that he's gonna start a game this year. I'm willing to bet that he starts a game this year for sure, and he could be the day one guy. You just don't know. But I think it's just a lot to fight, and it won't be a talent thing. I don't think it's based on talent at all. I think whatever it is, it'll be based on another factor. Whether and NFL politics don't just stop at the Sanders family. Like NFL, if you know anybody in the NFL, the first thing a college player to an NFL player, they always get told about, hey, bro, sometimes it's politics. You could be the best player, but if I got 20 million guaranteed to the guy in front of you, the owner wants to see that guy play, because if I say that this guy can't play, that's my job on the line.
And that's what people got to realize is that just like in college, this is a job. Your job is to win games. And if you're going to win, if you win games, you keep your job. If you don't win games, or at least bring in a lot of money, then yeah, you people will, we're going to have questions about you needing to be here. So no, that's a very good point with that right there. The running back we were talking about was Simeon Price. I was incorrect at the beginning of the video. Simeon Price was the running back that came from Coastal Carolina he was at Mississippi State, Coastal Carolina. He's the new running back that we were talking about earlier today out of Florida, Pensacola, Florida. Kid's going to be fun to watch. All right. We're going to wrap it up. It's been an hour, man. Actually, hour and 15. So, Dukes, let the people know where to find you. Of course, those that are on your channel, they know. What you got? What you got?
Hold on. Hey, whoever just texted me, say something real quick. All you got to do is just say, I see you. If you just text me, all you got to do is pop in right quick and say, I see you.
Okay.
I'm going to see. I'm going to see if you see it. I got a real special guest. Matter of fact, we might have to do an interview. Somebody just reached out to me, man, said they watched it. So, man, hey, man, you know what? This was a good idea. We got to do it more often, dog, for sure.
I agree, man. I agree. We gotta plan this out because again, one, I like talking ball, and it's so much easier to talk with somebody that next know what the hell they talking about. Oh, man, at least I can tee it up, right?
Yeah, man. I appreciate it, man, for sure. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. That's always been the dream and aspiration of mine, is to host the show and just lead it to the people that know what they talking about and let them just continue to do it. Come on, person, whoever you sent the text, go ahead and hit that what it do. Don't tweet up at the on the socials.
Nah, he good. He just text me. We good.
Okay.
Might got a little surprise later on. Y'all will see. We'll see.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep that in mind. So again, thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channels, subscribe. Check me out here on Primetime CFB here on YouTube. Same thing with my guy DukesThe Scoop here on YouTube as well as on X. Holla at your boy. Again, me and Dukes are gonna plan this out. We're gonna make sure we get together a little more often, at least every 2 weeks. Season come, we may do some after game stuff. I don't know. We'll see. You're gonna be at Georgia Tech, right?
Man, I'm gonna be everywhere. I'm gonna be
all right. You're gonna be at the first game of the season at Friday night?
Oh, I thought you were gonna be Georgia Tech. No, yeah. I should be at Georgia Tech for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I got my hotel booked up there at Boulder. I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to make the trip up there Thursday, go to the game Friday, and get back Saturday to watch all the college football slate. So we gonna link. If I make it out there, we gonna link and get some stuff put together for the people or whatnot. So hey, thank y'all, man. Once again, y'all some good people. We appreciate you. Check out Duke's interview on his channel with Book. Good stuff. Great stuff. I learned a lot. Maybe say, okay. I love it. So check them out. And we'll grow over here on Primetime some more, do some things. We'll chop it up soon. Holla.